I get why you'd want it. Instantly. This is the kind of job that almost never becomes available in the NFL. When it does, it sends shockwaves through the entire league. You want it desperately, and if you're Cleveland, the mere possibility of landing it flips the entire Browns organization upside down. The idea that John Harbaugh might look at Baltimore, shrug, and say, "You fired me? Fine. I'll take the AFC North rival and rebuild them from the ground up," is almost unbelievable. Almost. If the Browns do this, they have to think beyond resumes. This hire has to check every box: intelligence, emotional intelligence, and elite football acumen. It can't just be scheme or side of the ball. Offense or defense doesn't matter. What matters is command, leadership, and the ability to mold a franchise from the inside out. Because now this isn't rumor anymore. The Baltimore Ravens have fired John Harbaugh, and suddenly Browns owner Jimmy Haslam is making moves. Real moves. Multiple sources close to the situation say Haslam's focus is locked in and the vision is unmistakable. Bring Harbaugh to Cleveland and task him with developing the next franchise quarterback, Shedeur Sanders, the same way he transformed Lamar Jackson into an MVP. And here's why this entire situation feels surreal. The timing is too perfect to dismiss. Kevin Stefanski was fired by the Browns one day before Harbaugh was dismissed in Baltimore. One day. That's not coincidence. That's coordination. You don't need to be an NFL insider to understand that conversations were happening behind closed doors. Agents were talking. Scenarios were being mapped out. This level of alignment doesn't happen by accident. These are calculated chess moves by people who know exactly how this league works. Was this all orchestrated weeks in advance? Only God knows. But the pieces are falling into place far too cleanly for this to be random. Let's be honest, Harbaugh staying put would have made perfect sense. He's a great coach, a proven leader. But think about Cleveland's reality. The Browns have been searching for their quarterback for decades. Decades. They've cycled through more names under center than most franchises see in a lifetime. Jimmy Haslam understands the math here. To truly change the trajectory of this organization, he needs two things: a coach who knows how to develop elite quarterbacks, and a young signal caller with generational upside. With John Harbaugh and Shedeur Sanders, he may have found both at the same time. Now let's rewind to Baltimore because this is where the story deepens. In the final game of the season, the Ravens lost to the Steelers by a single field goal, a gut punch loss, the kind that lingers. But what most fans never saw were the fractures forming beneath the surface. Insiders have been quietly talking about tension between Harbaugh and Lamar Jackson during that game. Disagreements over play calling, communication breakdowns, a relationship that, after years of success, had reached its expiration date. That loss didn't just sting, it ended their season. And according to league whispers, it was the breaking point for ownership. After everything Harbaugh had done, after the wins, the stability, after developing Lamar into one of the league's premier quarterbacks, the Ravens decided it was time to move on, and the speed of that decision raises serious questions. This wasn't reactionary. This feels premeditated, as if they'd been reading the writing on the wall for some time. Maybe they sensed Harbaugh was already mentally drifting elsewhere. "I'm disappointed," Harbaugh said afterward. "Our guys fought. We were right there. We had a chance to win the North and didn't get it done." And just like that, everything else became history. But here's the part that truly changes the narrative. During the draft process, John Harbaugh wanted Shedeur Sanders. Badly. He saw echoes of Lamar Jackson. Raw talent, competitive edge, command of the huddle, leadership beyond his years. Harbaugh believed he could mold Shedeur into another MVP-caliber quarterback. Ownership didn't agree. The Ravens weren't willing to spend a first-round pick. They wouldn't use a second-rounder either. In their eyes, Lamar was the guy. And they had no interest in inviting controversy into the building. By the third round, Harbaugh was scrambling, desperate enough to reach out directly to Deion Sanders, Shedeur's father, to test the waters. Think about that for a moment. One of the most respected coaches in football calling Coach Prime to ask if his son would consider coming to Baltimore as a developmental option. But here's the catch. Shedeur wasn't interested, and honestly, how could he be? He wasn't raised to sit quietly behind someone else. He was raised by a Hall of Famer who taught him to know his value, to believe in his ability, and to never accept a secondary role. Shedeur wants to be the guy, not a backup, not a project, not a clipboard holder. He wants the keys from day one, and when that phone call happened, well, however it went, one thing became crystal clear. This story was never finished in Baltimore. Can anyone really blame him for thinking, why on earth would I spend the next 10 years backing up Lamar Jackson? Of course not. From Shedeur's perspective, the logic is simple. So Shedeur and his camp handled it professionally. They thanked the Ravens and politely declined. What happened next speaks volumes. Shortly after the draft, a reporter pressed John Harbaugh about the situation during a press conference. His response was revealing. He made it clear, almost pointedly, that decisions about specific players and signings were not his call. Player acquisition, he said, ultimately rested with management, not the coaching staff. Anyone paying attention could hear the frustration beneath his words. This was a coach who had identified his guy, who had a clear developmental vision, and who was being overruled by executives in suits who believed they knew better. From that moment on, something shifted. You could see it in Harbaugh's body language. The fire wasn't quite the same. The passion that Ravens fans had grown accustomed to felt muted. There was distance, almost as if he had already begun checking out mentally. His disappointment over not getting Shedeur Sanders lingered throughout the season, surfacing in subtle but noticeable ways. The energy dipped. The connection with players felt strained. And when that final loss to Pittsburgh hit, when the fractures with Lamar Jackson became impossible to ignore, it was as if the dam finally burst. Harbaugh himself all but said it. "We don't talk about draft room decision-making," he stated, "so I'm not going to be able to answer that." As much as he might have wanted to explain, he couldn't, and that silence said everything. Then enters Jimmy Haslam. Say what you will about Haslam, and plenty has been said, but one thing is undeniable. He is always hunting for opportunity, always searching for the formula that finally turns Cleveland into a winner. And when he saw the situation unfolding in Baltimore, when he realized John Harbaugh might actually be available, he didn't hesitate. Reports now indicate Haslam reached out to Harbaugh's camp within hours of the firing. The pitch was straightforward and powerful. Come to Cleveland, take control of quarterback decisions, and we'll draft Shedeur Sanders for you this year. You'll get the blank canvas you were denied in Baltimore. You'll build the offense around the quarterback you believe in. That uncertainty, it disappears if you hire John Harbaugh. You can't say that about any other coaching candidate, and honestly, this pairing could be lethal. Look at what Harbaugh did with Lamar Jackson. He took a quarterback half the league doubted, someone some scouts dismissed as a running back masquerading as a QB, and turned him into the NFL's most valuable player. He constructed an entire offensive ecosystem tailored to Lamar's strengths. He protected him, developed him, believed in him when others didn't. Now imagine him doing that with Shedeur Sanders. This is a quarterback who already possesses elite pocket awareness, who can make every throw on the field, who has been groomed for this stage his entire life by one of the greatest athletes the sport has ever seen. Shedeur isn't Lamar Jackson. His game is different. He's a more traditional pocket passer with enough mobility to extend plays when needed. And that's exactly why this fit is so compelling. Harbaugh has already proven he can adapt his system to his quarterback. He's not a relic clinging to outdated schemes. He's innovative, flexible, and most importantly, he knows how to bring the best out of young talent. He builds confidence. He creates structure. He shields players from mistakes that could derail their development. Suddenly, the Browns would have everything in place. They have a solid offensive line. They have a premier running back in Nick Chubb when healthy. They have receiving weapons led by Amari Cooper. What they've lacked year after year is the right coach-quarterback partnership, and this could finally be it. Harbaugh wouldn't just coach Shedeur, he would mentor him, teach him how to carry himself as a professional, how to handle the pressure of being the face of a franchise. He would be fully invested in extracting the absolute best version of Shedeur Sanders because his own legacy would be tied to it. This is about redemption for Harbaugh as well. He spent his career in Baltimore as one of the league's most successful coaches, but now he has the chance to prove he can do it again, somewhere else, with a quarterback he personally selected and developed from the ground up. This isn't about luck. It's about validation, about proving his philosophy works regardless of circumstance or personnel. For Jimmy Haslam, this would be the boldest move of his ownership tenure. He'd be wagering the future of the franchise on a recently fired coach and a rookie quarterback who hasn't taken a single NFL snap. But championships aren't won by playing it safe. They're won by taking calculated risks. If this works, if Harbaugh and Shedeur Sanders become the next elite coach-quarterback duo, Haslam goes from one of the most criticized owners in football to the architect of one of the most remarkable rebuilds the league has ever seen. Now the only question is, can it actually happen? Can Cleveland close the deal with Harbaugh? Will the Browns truly draft Shedeur Sanders with their first pick? And is Shedeur willing to take on the challenge of transforming one of the NFL's most troubled franchises? Those answers are coming. Soon. One thing is certain, this situation is accelerating fast, and it has all the ingredients of a blockbuster move that could reshape the AFC North for years. What do you think? Is this the right move for the Browns? Can Harbaugh turn Shedeur Sanders into the next great NFL quarterback? Let me know in the comments. And don't forget to like the video and subscribe for more breaking NFL news and analysis. This offseason is going to be wild, and we'll be covering every step of it. I'll see you in the next one. You ever get that feeling that something big is about to happen? That quiet tension in the air, the calm before the storm, where you just know a shift is coming? That's exactly where we are right now. As a fan, you've lived through everything. The highs, the crashes, the false dawns, the promises that never materialized. Same cycle, different year. But what if this time is different? What if this is the moment the story finally changes? Let's talk about it. And real quick, make sure you hit that like button. If you've been a fan for more than 20 years, drop a Go Browns in the comments. Because John Harbaugh's name has officially entered the Cleveland Browns orbit, and this might be the biggest coaching storyline this franchise has seen in decades. This isn't just another candidate. This is a Super Bowl winning, culture-defining, division-dominating head coach who could completely rewrite Cleveland's identity. Kevin Stefanski is out. And while there's appreciation for the stability he provided, the moment for a true power move has arrived, and Cleveland is dialing the number. Multiple credible reports confirm the Browns were among 7 teams that contacted John Harbaugh's camp within 45 minutes of his release. Let that sink in. Within the hour, his agent was fielding calls from nearly half the league, and this wasn't limited to teams without head coaches. According to insider Gary Myers, 3 teams that already have head coaches still picked up the phone. That's how seismic Harbaugh's availability is. The Browns weren't just background noise. They were in the mix. This is the kind of aggressiveness fans have been begging for. For years, Cleveland has watched other franchises land elite leaders and make bold, franchise-altering decisions. Now, the Browns are finally stepping into that arena, targeting a coach who ruled the AFC North for nearly 2 decades with Baltimore. It's not just poetic, it's strategic. Harbaugh knows this division inside and out. He understands what it takes to beat Pittsburgh, to outmaneuver Cincinnati. He coached Joe Flacco, yes, that Joe Flacco, to a Super Bowl title. The debate was never whether Flacco was elite. It was Harbaugh who extracted the very best from him. Now imagine what he could do with Cleveland's quarterback situation, whoever ends up under center. But here's where things get even more interesting. The Browns aren't just casually intrigued. Fans and media alike are pushing the organization to go all in, write the check, give Harbaugh whatever he wants. Because what he brings isn't just football IQ, it's culture, it's long-term vision, it's real leadership, something this franchise has been chasing forever. And don't overlook this. Harbaugh is a Browns fan. This wouldn't just be another job. This could be personal. This could be a legacy-defining chapter. But there's a twist. Sources indicate Harbaugh may want to bring in his own general manager, and that complicates everything. Andrew Berry is still in place. He's had hits. He's had misses. He was part of the Deshaun Watson trade that continues to haunt this franchise. And while some recent drafts showed promise, his track record at critical positions, offensive line and wide receiver, has been shaky at best. In 2025, the offensive line was neglected entirely. 4 starters hit free agency, the unit collapsed, and the wide receivers Berry drafted, many are already forgotten names or game day inactives. So now the question gets real. Would you move on from Andrew Berry to land John Harbaugh? Some fans wouldn't hesitate. Harbaugh isn't a coach begging for a job. He's the kind of candidate who walks into the room and asks, "Why should I come here?" He's not being interviewed, he's conducting the interview. And if his terms include control, including handpicking his GM and offensive coordinator, are you willing to make that sacrifice? Berry has defenders. He's aggressive, analytical, calculated. But when the offensive line is in shambles, when a true WR1 hasn't been drafted in years, when your biggest swing, Deshaun Watson, has become a long-term burden, fans are justified in questioning whether holding on to Berry is worth missing out on Harbaugh, especially in a weak coaching cycle. Let's be honest, the pool this year isn't deep. The available names don't exactly inspire confidence. But when John Harbaugh enters the picture, everything changes. His resume speaks for itself. 18 years in Baltimore, 6 AFC North titles, 4 AFC Championship appearances, and a Lombardi Trophy. He's the kind of coach that makes teams with head coaches reconsider everything. And the Browns are right there in the conversation. No one is saying it's done. No one is saying an interview is locked. But the interest is real. And if Jimmy Haslam is serious about elevating this franchise, this is the moment. Don't just make the call. Close the deal, even if it ruffles feathers in the front office. Because when you build a house, you start with the foundation. And that foundation might just be a coach who already knows the rivalries, understands the pressure, and fits this city like a glove. So here's the question, Cleveland. If John Harbaugh wants the job, but only with full control, his own GM, his own offensive coordinator, do you hand him the keys? Should the Browns go all in, even if it means saying goodbye to Andrew Berry? Let me know what you think. Because this isn't just about football anymore. It's about power, identity, and the future of the Cleveland Browns. If you decide to move on from Andrew Berry, you're not just replacing an executive, you're fundamentally redefining how this franchise operates from the ground up. That's a massive decision. But after years of mediocrity, missed opportunities, and half measures, you have to ask yourself a hard question. Is that exactly the shakeup this organization needs? Let's be honest, Browns fans, true stability has been rare. Yes, Kevin Stefanski brought a measure of it for a time, but what did it ultimately produce? An offense that stalled when it mattered most. Questionable play calling, and yet another early playoff exit. As for Berry, he's had ample time to shape this roster, and the results are mixed at best. There were smart trades. The 2025 draft showed flashes of promise, but the offensive line was a known weakness that went unaddressed, and the wide receiver room has been nothing short of a failure. You cannot repeatedly miss on premium positional needs and expect different outcomes. So, if the cost of upgrading at head coach means granting John Harbaugh full authority, allowing him to reshape the front office, assemble his own staff, and fully implement his vision, why hesitate? This isn't about loyalty. It's about winning. And Harbaugh wins. He always has. He brings structure. He brings identity. And above all, he brings credibility to a franchise that has spent far too long without it. Just imagine how quickly the league's perception would change. The moment the Browns land John Harbaugh, the narrative shifts overnight. No longer a franchise stuck in quarterback purgatory. No longer a team leaning solely on analytics without instinct. Instead, Cleveland becomes a legitimate AFC contender with a proven leader steering the ship. That kind of transformation doesn't come from hiring another up-and-coming coordinator. It comes from someone who's already reached the summit and is hungry to climb it again. Now consider the locker room. Harbaugh's reputation among players is well documented. He commands respect, he develops talent, and most importantly, he demands accountability. In a division as ruthless as the AFC North, that leadership is priceless. This is a coach who isn't afraid to stand toe-to-toe with Pittsburgh, Cincinnati, or even his former team in Baltimore. In fact, Harbaugh leading the Browns against the Ravens would instantly become one of the most compelling storylines in the entire NFL. Of course, this move isn't without risk. Handing full control to a head coach doesn't guarantee success. We've seen it backfire elsewhere, and when it fails spectacularly. But this is a calculated risk, a necessary one. Because without the right head coach, it doesn't matter how sharp your front office is. If your offense can't move the ball, if your locker room lacks identity, if your sideline lacks energy, you're not winning football games. That reality places the pressure squarely on Jimmy Haslam. The fans are watching, the league is watching, and most importantly, John Harbaugh is watching. If he's seriously considering Cleveland as his next chapter, Haslam has to deliver. Not just with money, but with structure, with commitment, with real authority. That means empowering Harbaugh to bring in his people, execute his philosophy, and rebuild this franchise from the inside out. Because opportunities like this don't come often. Coaches of Harbaugh's caliber rarely hit the open market. He's not a recycled name bouncing from stop to stop. He's not a coordinator hoping for his first shot. He's a proven winner with a deep playoff experience, a championship pedigree, and something left to prove. There's another factor here too, fan energy. Bringing Harbaugh to Cleveland would instantly reignite the fan base. Season ticket sales spike. National media attention floods in. Suddenly, the Browns are no longer an afterthought. They're relevant. They're respected, they're dangerous. That's the ripple effect of a move like this. Yes, there will be competition. Other teams will pursue Harbaugh, some with more polished rosters or cleaner cap sheets. But Cleveland offers something unique. History, passion, and the chance to build something lasting. A chance to transform a beloved franchise into a sustained winner. Harbaugh isn't just interviewing for a job, he's evaluating legacies. And if the Browns are willing to hand him the keys, if they're willing to trust his vision and relinquish control, this could be the partnership that finally breaks the cycle. The moment Cleveland stops thinking small, stops settling, stops accepting mediocrity. If John Harbaugh is available, you move mountains to get him. If he wants control, you give it to him. Because this isn't about one season, it's about the next decade, about building a team that doesn't just sneak into the playoffs, but stays there, competes there, and commands respect across the league. So Browns fans, as the coaching carousel spins, remember this. This might be the moment everything changes. The only question is whether Cleveland is bold enough to take the shot. If you believe in this vision, if you're all in on bringing Harbaugh to Cleveland and launching a new era of Browns football, make sure you're subscribed, hit that like button, drop your take in the comments, and click the video on your screen right now for more exclusive Browns coverage. Go Browns! Thank you guys, see you next video.